Guess what it is? July 18, 2016 meeting of the Anne Arundel County Council is now in session. Please stand for the invocation. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Grasso.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, once again, we're here to do the work for the people of Anne Arundel County. Please help us make the best and choices that are the best for the people of Anne Arundel County. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Madam Secretary, please read the ethics statement.
The Ethics Commission has asked that I advise you that under certain circumstances, members of the public may qualify as lobbyists when they testify before the County Council. If so, the law requires that certain information be filed with the Ethics Commission. The Chairman of the Ethics Commission has asked that those present review the Ethics Commission information in the foyer of these chambers. If there are any questions about lobbying requirements, speakers should contact the Ethics Commission in the Heritage Office Complex on Riva Road.
Great, thank you. Open up the invitation audience. I do have 4 folks that have signed up in advance. As those 4, please come forward right now. Andrew Green, Daniel Friend, Ming Sun, and J.H. Snyder. And we also have 2 additional seats. If anyone else is wishing to speak on items not appearing on the agenda, I ask you to please come forward at this time as well. And we'll start off with Mr. Green. Mr. Green.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, my name is Andrew Green. I live at 1207 Bradley Road in the Cottonwood community. I'm president of the Cottonwood Homeowners Association, and I'm addressing you on their behalf. We currently have a guardrail spanning Bradley Road, which separates our community from the Colonial Woods community, and we asked that developer K. Hovnanian Homes if it would be removed, and we're clearly told it would not. Many of our community members purchased homes in the community with the expectation that it would remain a dead end with no through traffic, and to be certain of this, we had reached out to the Assistant Planning and Zoning Officer, Mr. Chris Soldano, and received confirmation that there were no plans to remove it. Some 2 months ago, we were informed by KHOV the county had directed them to remove the guardrail. We reached out to every representative we could to try to table that issue until a community meeting would be held, and we're assured that it would be tabled until then. And then 2 weeks later, KHOV began removing the guardrail. We stalled their operation, frantically called the county, and were able to arrange a meeting with some county representatives, officials. During the meeting, dozens of members from both communities, Cottonwood and Colonial Woods, came. Another 2 dozen signed a petition to leave the guardrail in place. Within a few minutes of our opening remarks, we were summarily dismissed and basically told the decision had been made, that the plans were laid out in 1929, reaffirmed in 1970, and finalized more than 10 years ago when KHOV was given the permit. The guardrail would come down, and we had no choice, and they returned my petition to me. Over 3/4 of our community is families with young children. We play in the neighborhood, ride bikes, walk around, cross the street for piano lessons, take the school bus and walk through the neighborhood afterward. Our community is very diligent and careful in driving through the neighborhood. We embrace these children, but we're sure that removing that guardrail is going to open up through traffic to our neighborhood that isn't going to care or know that there are children walking around riding their bikes, and it's going to be a danger to everybody. I hope that you guys can help us out in resolving this issue, and I thank Mr. Grasso, who has offered to do so.
Thank you. The next speaker, Mr. Dan.
Good evening. I'm here to speak in opposition of the county's plans to remove the existing barrier on Bradley Road in the Cottonwood neighborhood of Severn in Mr. Grasso's district. The barrier separates Cottonwood from Colonial Woods. For the last year and a half, my neighbors and I have been in communication with members of the county government. As early as May 2015, we received communications from Planning and Zoning stating that there were no plans to remove the barrier. With 31 homes, having 34 children and 3 more on the way, my neighbors and I do not want to see our no-outlet community turn into a throughway and increase traffic. To our surprise, our builder informed us in June that the county was forcing them to remove the barrier in order to release their bonds. My neighbors and I contacted elected officials and asked to have input into that decision. After much work, we were granted what we believed to be a hearing. As it turns out, the hearing was with officials from Planning and Zoning who did not want to hear citizen concerns. They came to the meeting with their minds set and allowed very little input before shutting down the citizens there to speak. To my knowledge, no elected officials were present. Officials from planning and zoning cited public safety and snow removal as the primary factors in making their decision. However, despite our concerns, they have been unable to show any opinions from officials in police, fire, or public works departments that support that position. Police and fire have in fact been out to our community without any delays, and last winter's blizzard was handled with no noticeable issues to the communities. Additionally, no officials from those departments were on hand to discuss citizens' concerns at the hearing, and there is no evidence that they, as the subject matter experts, have had any input into that decision. Our concerns have been largely ignored by the decision makers thus far, and in some cases, our residents have been met with contempt for their opposition to this decision. Officials refused to accept the petition we had of those affected, and some residents at the hearing were refused a chance to speak. In closing, I ask the council and Mr. Grasso to work with the taxpayers affected by this decision to halt the process until such time as we can be given a fair chance at meaningful input into the issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sun?
Yes. Good evening. My name is Ming Sang. I'm the third family signed the contract to buy the house over there. At the beginning, the key house builder told us, and there's the guardrail there will be permanent. No more removing later on. But recently, this issue bumped up. Nobody happy with that, and everybody concerned about kids' safety. I don't have little kids over there. My kids already grew. Not my big concern. But for the home community concern, we talk a lot. So nobody happy to get this removed, and especially this area, even we remove it, no benefit for anybody, even for another neighborhood, because this two road like a triangle to the main road. So either left side, either our side can go reach the the main street, main road easily, because directly go to the street for both sides. So no, even we remove it, no benefit for anybody. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. Mr. Grasso?
The road is Bradley?
Yes. Yes.
Bradley Road? Okay. And you said you folks had a petition from the neighbors that don't want this?
I neglected to bring it with me.
Okay. And of that community, how many people would you say are in favor of leaving that guardrail line?
Our entire community, Cottonwood, and at least a dozen people from the Colonial Woods who came to the meeting or signed our petition. We have heard maybe one or two people who were disinterested, or the one who, the only person strongly feels about it, its removal, is the person who lives right in front of it. And basically,
that's not good enough for me. Everybody else is against it. Okay, so I'm sending off a text message to the chief of staff to contact Chris Saladano, and he'll know that and see if we can put a stop to it, okay? Thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Snyder?
A few years ago, County Executive John Leopold was forced from office in part for using government resources for political purposes. Those of you on the council at that time endorsed the principle that government resources should not be used for political purposes. Senior AACP staff have also used government resources for political purposes in a way far more harmful to our democracy. I am submitting for the record 3 op-eds I published on that subject, one each in the Washington Post, Capital, and elighthouse.info. Let me be clear about the nature of the analogy I am making. I didn't believe what John Leopold did was illegal, and published 2 op-eds in the Baltimore Sun explaining my reasoning. I also don't believe that anything AACP staff have done is illegal, but use of government resources that isn't illegal may nevertheless be unethical and thus hidden from the public. My question to you is, assuming that senior AACP staff are improperly using government resources for political purposes in a way that isn't illegal but would be widely perceived as improper if publicly exposed, who would have an incentive to investigate and punish such behavior? Certainly not the Board of Education, whose members believe it is improper to micromanage senior AACP staff, which includes conducting meaningful public oversight. Certainly not the AACPS Ethics Panel, which lacks the independence and power to provide effective ethical oversight of high-level AACPS public officials. Certainly not the state's attorney or state prosecutor, as AACP staffers have, in my judgment, done nothing illegal. So I ask you, do you have any incentive to prevent senior AAC staff from misusing government resources for political purposes? And if not you, then who? As a starting point, I'd suggest you investigate the AACPS political operation run by Assistant Superintendent Sally Parham. In conclusion, a week ago, I published an op-ed in the Capitol arguing that the incentive here to turn a blind eye are similar to the ones described in the documentary Spotlight, which won the 2010 Oscar for Best Picture. It describes the blind eye the church, politicians, and press turned to a widespread pattern of child molestation by
Please
priests.
summarize, Mr. Snyder.
I'm done with the last sentence. If you disagree with the analysis I presented here, I'd welcome your speaking up now. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie?
Julie Johnson, P.O. Box 6634, Annapolis, Maryland. It always makes me really happy to see concerned citizens come in and present their issues and cases to you for, for your input and hopefully for your energetic response. Sometimes the energetic, supportive responses are not forthcoming. Today I emailed you some deeds because, as you know, one of my neighbors bought a property, renovated it, asked sort of forgot, seemed to have forgotten that the law is that you ask for permits before you start, but at any rate, and then asked for variances. He asked for 2 of them. And he wanted to be allowed to do work closer to the property line, that is, construct things, permanent things, closer to the property line than the law requires. And so what he did is, he just used a location drawing and not an actual boundary line plat that that included a history of the development of the lot, the property lines, and the out conveyances. That is, a strip of it was sold off in 1953. If you don't have as much as you had when you originally had, that's supposed to be in the deed and stuff. Because if you want to redo, if the setback's 25 feet, where's the starting line if it's not the property line? And if you don't know where the property line is, how do you do this? Every kid who plays sports, every kid who plays, or anybody who occasionally watches football knows 3 inches makes a difference between, is it a first down, or did you make the down or not? Or is it a goal? I mean, these are really big deals. And in this case, you're building a permanent structure. Then, of course, he decided he was going to put on a second floor. I have real concerns, and I would like you to consider the possibility of developing some legislation for...
Please summarize, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. Someone to whom citizens can turn with questions and issues about our public employees performing their duties accurately and properly.
Thank you.
Like a people's council.
Yep. Thank you. Mr. Sinclair.
Just hold the mic over.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, other council members. I'm Harry Sinclair, 1170 Jeffrey Drive, Crofton, MD. I'm here to talk about this bill 16, I think it is. It's about expansions in West County. It's about, it's a reason why I'm moving back.
Mr. Sinclair, you got to wait till we hear that bill to speak on that. Because it's on tonight's agenda, you can't speak on it right now.
Oh, I can speak later on?
Yeah, it's kind of silly the way we do it, but the rules are the rules. So
Okay.
right now, we're speaking on anything that's not on tonight's printed agenda.
Okay, let me talk about Route 3.
There you go.
Here's, okay. Here, I got another packet here on Route 3. That study, that started back in 1956. It was part of Eisenhower's interstate deal. And they did all the surveying, and they had it was supposed to be called 297 because it went from Baltimore Beltway to Route 50. However, Jimmy Lighthizer was the chairman or the whatever, county councilman, and the people in Crofton didn't like it coming through there as it did come through Glen Burnie, okay, where it's got the walls. There's enough acreage there or width to put 12 lanes, 6 north, 6 south. That was supposed to go through Crofton with sound barriers. However, Jimmy lived in Crofton, and the people didn't want it, so it took a left turn at Route 32, and it's still tied in with Route 50, so it still met part of the federal requirements to link in, and they named it 97 because it wasn't what it was supposed to be, 297. Just like 295 goes north-south, well, 297 was supposed to go north-south also. And here's all the studies right here. This is 1954. This is 1998. This one is Task Force 2002. Here's the latest. Okay, here's the latest that I got off the internet. And it goes through all the alternatives that they have. And, you know, it's 56 to 2006. What's that, 40 years? I don't know. Whatever it is. Whoever's a mathematician in here can figure it out. But it's ridiculous. Route 3 has become worse than Ritchie Highway, okay? And it ties into 175, which 175 is somewhat of a goat rope at the intersection there of Sappington Station Road where the roundabout is. The state bought property to make that roundabout that big. They condemned property to make it that big so they could have 2 lanes going around it. Well, some moron came out and took the 2 lanes and made it into a 1-lane road because it was not safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
I'll be back.
All right. Is there any item any council member would like to place on the agenda?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Smith?
at this time, I'm going to withdraw Resolution 4616.
All right.
Certainly my hope to help facilitate, and my opinion is that, you know, we shouldn't be on the council unless we're improving the council or improving the county. And so I'm always going to look at what I think is in the best interest of the folks who live here in Anne Arundel County. And 4616 was certainly an effort, in my opinion, to give the council the ability to have a framework that extended it from 8 years to 12 years. I was going to make sure that the public knew that I had no interest myself of serving a 3rd term. I know that's what this bill was about, but obviously politics gets into play, and here we are. And so at this time, I will withdraw Resolution 4616.
Noted. Thank you. May I have a motion that any partial reading of any bill, resolution, or minutes constitutes a reading of the whole?
So moved, Mr. Second.
Second. Madam Secretary, please read the minutes of July 5th, 2016.
The meeting was called to order by Chairman Derek Fink at 7 p.m. and opened with the invocation given by Mr. Smith, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved, Mr. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Minutes of July 5th, 2016 stand approved as read. Madam Secretary, please read the titles of the bills that are being introduced this evening.
Bill 5616, an ordinance concerning deferred retirement option programs. Bill 5716, an ordinance concerning subdivision and development, forest conservation. Bill 5816, an ordinance concerning zoning, BRAC, mixed-use development. Bill 5916, an ordinance concerning public safety, animal control, redemption fees. Bill 6016, an ordinance concerning towing companies, rotation lists.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill 4616 as amended.
An ordinance concerning the issuance, sale, and delivery of Anne Arundel County, Maryland general obligation bonds and bond anticipation notes.
Good morning, or good afternoon, rather. Good evening. We'll go with good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Bernie Marzick in the County Executive's Office. With me at the table is Joy Mussag, Comptroller. Bill 4616 is our annual bond ordinance concerning the issuance, sale, and delivery of the general obligation bonds and bond anticipation notes. We've had this before the council the last 2 meetings. I appreciate the auditor's help and input in finalizing this bill, and we'd ask for your support tonight.
All right. Any other comments from the council? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Anyone here wishing to speak on 4616? State your name and address for the record.
Johnson, P.O. Box 6634, Annapolis, Maryland. It's short and sweet. You're going to do what you're going to do, but I keep hearing all of these really scary things about all the international situations, you know, with all kinds of dire predictions about economic catastrophe. And so I would simply urge that you seriously consider maximizing frugality, you know, for the foreseeable future and limiting spending and borrowing, simply because there's a question of what's the dollar going to be worth, you know, at any time in the near future, and can the taxpayers really carry the burden of all of the potential debt? Thank you.
All right. Madam Secretary, please, the public hearing is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill 4616.
An ordinance concerning the issuance, sale, and delivery of Anne Arundel County, Maryland general obligation bonds and bond anticipation notes.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Grasso.
Aye.
Mr. Pruski.
Aye.
Mr. Perutka.
Abstain.
Mr. Trumbauer?
Aye.
Mr. Walker?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Fink?
Aye.
6 in the affirmative, 1 abstention. Bill 4616 as amended is passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill 5216.
An ordinance concerning Gibson Island Special Community Benefit District approval of loan and amended assignment agreement.
All right. Spoke about this last week. Anything to add from the administration?
No, Bernie Marzik from the County Executive's Office, we've recused ourselves from this bill because the county executive lives in this community.
Very good. There's my resolution. Any questions from anyone on the council? Go ahead and open up the public hearing. Anyone here wishing to speak on Bill 5216? Seeing no movement, the public hearing is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of 5216.
An ordinance concerning Gibson Island Special Community Benefit District approval of loan and amended assignment agreement.
We do have one technical amendment. Please read the title of amendment number 3.
This technical amendment corrects a typographical error in the day of the effective date of Bill 1115.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. It's just a technical amendment. Any questions? Go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Grasso?
Aye.
Mr. Pruski?
Aye.
Mr. Pruitka?
Aye.
Mr. Trumbauer?
Aye.
Mr. Walker?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Fink?
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 3 is passed.
Thank you. Since this is a technical amendment, we'll go ahead and vote on final bill now. Any further discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Grasso?
Aye.
Mr. Pruski?
Aye.
Mr. Pruitka?
Aye.
Mr. Trumbauer?
Aye.
Mr. Walker?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Fink?
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill 5216 as amended is passed.
Please read title 5316.
An ordinance concerning watershed protection and restoration program, stormwater remediation fee waiver of interest.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Bernie Marzik in the County Executive's Office. With me at the table is Joy Mussog from the Office of Finance, Eric Michelson and Karen Henry from Department of Public Works, and Lori Blair Klatzmeyer from the Office of Law. Bill 5316 would allow the Finance Office to waive the interest for unpaid watershed protection and restoration fees that have resulted from errors in the State Department of Assessments and Taxation in the records of homeowners. Since the inception of the WPRF in fiscal year 2014, Department of Public Works staff has spent a considerable amount of time and effort processing appeals and credits, as well as working to clean up the data from a variety of sources that funnel into the collection of the fee. One of those sources is the State Department of Assessment and Taxation and their real property database. These records are generally up to date, but in the case of property that is owned by homeowners associations such as roads, parks, or parking lots, they are often inaccurate. In many cases, the ownership of the taxation records has never officially transferred from the original developer or LLC to the HOA, and there hasn't been a strong incentive on the part of SDAT to update these records. So the stormwater fees for privately owned impervious surfaces, the bills started going to these entities. However, they were not receiving their notices because of the incorrect information. When DPW is able to identify the property or the proper point of communication, the HOA often faces bills in arrears as well as the interest that goes along with that. Our bill is to try to remedy that situation by removing that interest at the discretion of the Office of Finance, and DPW would appreciate your support with this as well. So we'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Cross.
Just want to clarify, basically what it is, it's a screw up. People were getting hit for a fee that they shouldn't have had to pay, and it's the interest that was attached to it, and we just want to give the interest, not charge them. Is that what it is?
Correct, because they are not receiving the notices.
Okay, fair enough.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Trumbo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I understand this issue, and I remember when we first did the fee, there was concern about the roads and all of that. And I'm fine with the concept of this. I mean, I think actually Grasso summed it up pretty good. But my question is, once you find one of these situations where there was no clarity on who owned the road, or it was going to the wrong place, the bill was going to the wrong place, does it get fixed? I mean, is this going to be kind of, we've got that universe of ones that are messed up, we're going to fix it, we're going to waive their interest, and then this issue is over? Or is this going to be more of an ongoing problem?
All right, I'm going to defer to Mr. Michelson.
I think largely it's cleanup of existing records, although there could be new homeowners associations that come online in the future where this kind of issue could, come up. But, the way the legislation is written is that once the issue has been addressed, the record's been corrected, then essentially the entity is not eligible for additional waiver of the interest once the address has been corrected
Right,
in our records.
and once this is fixed, then DPW staff can stop spending time on trying to figure out who owns that sliver of a map, right?
We're having to do Google searches and all those kinds of things
Sure.
to try to find
Okay,
alternative.
very good, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Thank you all. We'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on 5316? Seeing no movement, the public hearing is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of 5316.
An ordinance concerning watershed protection and restoration program, stormwater remediation fee waiver of interest.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Grasso.
Aye.
Mr. Pruski.
Aye.
Mr. Peruka. Mr. Trumbauer.
Aye.
Mr. Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Smith. Mr. Fink.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill 5316 is passed.
Please read the title of 5416.
An ordinance concerning public safety boating on Weems Creek.
All right, Mr. Trumbauer, Mr. Marzick.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Bernie Marzick in the County Executive's office. With me at the table is Greg Swain from the Office of Law, as well as Michael Morris from the Annapolis, who is the Annapolis Director of Recreation and Parks. Bill 5416 allows the county executive to create a memorandum of understanding with the city of Annapolis and allow the city to extend its jurisdiction to cover Weems Creek. For those of you who aren't familiar with Weems Creek, it's the second creek you pass on the way out of Brow Boulevard. The side closest to downtown Annapolis is city. The side furthest away from downtown Annapolis is county. The MOU that we will develop with the city, if this bill is passed, will allow the city to enforce its boating ordinance and increase the public safety along Weems Creek. We've been working with Mr. Trumbauer and the mayor's office to address this concern, and we believe the best solution forward is to have this MOU with the city. The goal of the MOU is to partner with Annapolis and reduce the troublesome behavior along the creek that has been a citizen concern for several years beyond the less than 2 years we've been in office. And I'll let Mr. Trumbauer, when he has the opportunity, talk about some of these issues as well. But I'd also like to have Mr. Morris speak on behalf of the city to talk about the city's support of this.
Good evening, Mike Morris, Director of Recreation Parks for the City of Annapolis. Currently, the Harbor Master's Office for the City of Annapolis does patrol Weems Creek, patrols our portion of it. So the addition of this portion will not really be a large addition. We're already on the creek. We're already patrolling it daily. So adding this, we'll be glad to do this and assist the county any way we can.
Thanks, Chair.
Mr. Trumbauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add a little bit of background on this, very shortly after I was first elected, I became aware of this issue back in 2010, 2011. And Mr. Marzick described it pretty well. There was, some folks that were coming down and taking advantage of the fact that there is no regulation of that side, the county side of the creek, and they were mooring their vehicles, and they were being rather rowdy and disturbing the community members. And there was even reports of vandalism and theft from the docks and everything. And the real problem is that's the only place in the vicinity of Annapolis where you can moor your boat and you can have a very short paddle over to a public access point at Tucker Street. And so the word got out, in the nuisance boater community that this was a hot spot. And my constituents, unfortunately, suffered from that. And I remember putting some meetings together with former administration officials and natural resources police and trying to figure out a way to make this concept happen. The lawyers at that time decided that we couldn't make it work. Apparently now people have figured out how to make it work. I'm very pleased. I did not write this bill, but I've reviewed it and I definitely agree with the concept and I'm supportive of it. And I just want to bring to the council's attention one piece of insight. I did get some concern from residents that were worried if we passed this bill, then the county folks that have moorings on the creek are going to have to pay, whatever the city fee schedule is. And through clarification from the Office of Law, that we determined that they won't. And in fact, one of the provisions right here on page 2 says the enforcement authority is limited to specific sections of city code and shall not extend to permitting, collection of fees, or regulation any improvements extending into the waters within the county. So I think this is a creative solution. solution to address a specific problem, and the county is getting a good deal because we're getting enforcement by our partner, the city. And I think, the city residents were suffering as much as the county residents from this issue, so I think there's a benefit to both jurisdictions. So I applaud City of Annapolis and the administration and Office of Law for coming up with the solution. Thank you.
Who would typically enforce? DNR, I guess we typically depend on to
Natural
come and enforce
Resources
these.
Police, and they're very limited on what they can take action on. They have to view a crime in progress, and they have a very large patrol area. They can't park one of their boats in Weems Creek and just watch all the time. Now, they did do a very good job with their limited resources at the peak of the nuisance behavior, but they can't be there every night, and they're not there every day like the harbor master is. So.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Grasson.
Yeah, it's funny, I was talking to the DNR about enforcement, and I heard what you were saying, that they actually have to witness a crime, and I'm saying, have you lost something there? Because your biggest asset is the community. And the officer told me, he said, well, it's not per se we have to actually witness the crime. The problem is that when we get into a situation, the constituents don't want to come to court. That's the problem. And he says, and so that's the issue we're into, because we were dealing with duck shooting and stuff like that down in the creek, and they're not allowed to shoot the ducks while they're in the water. They have to be in flight, and everybody, it sounds like the 4th of July, duck hunting season at my side of the creek. And so the DNR guy said, he goes, the problem is the constituents won't come to court. That's the problem. He said, we got a witness, that's great. He goes, well, your people come. I said, oh, they'll be there, including me. So that's what I was told.
Any other discussion? We'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on 5416? Seeing no movement, the public hearing is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title.
An ordinance concerning public safety boating on Weems Creek.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Grasso.
Aye.
Mr. Pruski.
Aye.
Mr. Perutka. Mr. Trumbauer. Mr. Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Fink.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill 5416 is passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of 5516.
An ordinance concerning zoning plan unit developments in commercial districts in the BWI Fort Meade growth area.
All right. Mr. Marzi.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, with me Bernie Marzik from the County Executive's Office. With me at the table is Larry Tom, Office of Planning and Zoning, and Greg Swain from the Office of Law. Bill 5516 provides another zoning mechanism to help implement the land use policies of the 2009 General Development Plan. The GDP identifies 3 distinct development policy areas to help focus growth in areas where the existing and planned infrastructure, and to preserve the existing neighborhoods and the environment. These policy areas include targeted growth areas, managed growth areas, and a rural area. The targeted growth areas include county's town centers, commercial revitalization areas, and the mixed-use districts. The rural area encompasses most of South County, where the rural character of the area is envisioned to be maintained. And the managed growth area is the remainder of the county, where the future growth and redevelopment is planned to occur. Within this management growth area, the land surrounding the BWI and Airport and Fort Meade constitutes a portion of the county with this highest growth potential. 5516 will enhance these opportunities by allowing for additional flexibility in the development of the commercially zoned properties within the BWI and Fort Meade areas of the county. And we're grateful for Councilman Pruski and Councilman Smith's co-sponsorship of this, as this area affects their districts. We'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have on this bill. I see that Mr. Tom has provided a map that he can go through with the council as well.
Thank you, Mr. Marzi. Mr. Tom, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to distribute a map that may help to clarify the intent and impact of of Bill 5516. It shows the impact area for this bill, and within that impact area, you'll see parcels that are color-coded either red or yellow, red or green. The red areas are the properties that are zoned C2, C3 that are currently developed. It amounts to approximately 359 acres. And then the green areas are those that are zoned C2, C3 that are currently vacant. They account for about 189 acres.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Trumbauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Tom, I haven't really had an opportunity to talk to you at length about this bill yet, but I just want to make sure I understand.
Certainly.
So it's a fairly large area, right? I mean, I don't know if, did you guys say the acreage or anything? It's got to be.
It's on there.
It is on there. Look
Well,
at that.
not the total.
Well, no, that's not the
Right.
catchment. That's just those.
Right.
So it's exponentially higher than that. But anyway, it's a large area,
Right.
and the way you explain the map, I think only the color-coded parcels are affected.
That's correct.
So it's a very small subset of this area.
Right.
But the reason that you defined this area so large was what?
Well, because of, primarily because of the location of the two major drivers,
Okay.
that being Fort Meade and the airport.
Okay. And
And also, it recognizes the major transportation corridors
there, right.
in this quadrant of the county.
So would you anticipate, and you may not be able to answer this, but would you anticipate in the future that there may be more C2, C3 land, either through comp rezoning or other processes in this area?
There's always that possibility,
Sure.
Mr. Trumbauer. I can't predict that,
Right.
certainly, but there's always that possibility.
I mean, my thinking on this is, I know what you're trying to do. I'm generally supportive of it. It has the support of the council members that represent this area.
Yes.
But I just can't help thinking it's a little bit like taking a slice of comp rezoning out of the pie ahead of time, if we're doing such a large area. But I think that you explained it well, and I understand that this is a particular corridor.
Right. The other thing that's important to recognize, too, is that the way the bill is crafted, the PUDs in C2, C3 are special exception uses.
Yeah.
So that will, by code, that'll go before the hearing officer. So
Okay. So just out of curiosity, a tangential question, if I might. Would it be possible to set up like the reverse of a PUD? Or maybe it was a PUD that just does something different, that downzones. I mean, let's say you had a corridor that ran through your district that has too much residential development. Could someone design a PUD that said, that took some of the uses out and made them special exemption?
There's always that possibility, sure.
It's interesting. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions? Ms. Tate?
Good evening. I have a couple of questions about under 1812-202. It says, in addition to the above dwelling units, a PUD and a C2 or C3 may have the permitted uses in accordance with 18.5.102, but it doesn't say are those the uses in a C2 or a C3, because the chart in 102 covers C1 through C4. So which uses are covered?
My view is, and I'll defer to Mr. Swain, but my view is it would only be those uses that are listed in the C2, C3.
Okay, because that's not what the bill says. It's a generic covering. So basically, the way it's worded now, it sounds like you have all the uses in C1 through C4 available to you in this PUD.
I think, Greg Swain, Senior Assistant County Attorney, because this is a PUD, the PUD is subject to the conditions in the bulk regulations, which is 18.12.203, which lays out the specific application. Notably, a PUD in a C2 or C3 zoning district may be permitted as a special exception only in those certain areas.
But it doesn't specify, I guess my question is, it doesn't say which the uses are, because if, under 18.12.202, where it says uses, it doesn't say which uses, it just has the whole generic chart for the commercial districts. So shouldn't it be clarified to say that it really is the C2 and C3 uses? If you read it.
Not sure I follow you on that.
If you read the sentence, it says, in addition to the above dwelling units, a PUD and a C2 or C3 may have the permitted uses in accordance with 18.5.102. So is it the C2 and C3 uses in 18.5.102, or is it all the uses in 18.5.102? Because that's the main chart. And then under the bulk regulations, it says C2, C3 for the amount of acreage and the percentages for the single-family dwellings, but it doesn't say anything about the minimum site area for commercial uses, the maximum coverage for those commercial uses that are in the PUD. So I'm just curious as to, is it all the commercial uses? Are they getting an exception, or is it really only C2 and C3?
Well, it applies, it's only applicable in C2 or C3. So you can only get a special exception.
I understand that, but it's not clear based on the language in there that it's C2 and C3.
Well, I think what
you're inferring that.
Well, I think what it's referring to, it may have the permitted conditional special exception in business complex auxiliary uses in accordance with 18.5.102. It's only a special exception use because that's what's in the column. So if you're in C2 or C3, you only allowed to have the PUD as a special exception in those uses. The PUD defines its own uses when you go to Title 12 or Subtitle 12.
I see that. I see that means that by putting it in 18.5.102 in the chart, you're now allowed to do a residential use in a commercial district. But what it says under here within 18.12.202, you don't know which commercial uses are allowed within that residential use in a commercial district. So is it still the same underlying uses? That's what my question is.
In C2 and C3.
Right.
Well, I think
because it's unclear in the different sections on what uses are allowed.
Well, I believe that's in Canvas.
Okay. And as far as under sub F of 18.12.203, is there somewhere where you can reference what the maximum coverage is for these commercial uses? Are you referring back to another, because this language in the special uses PUD has only been used prior for residential uses. So I see where it's 10% of the coverage, or minimum composition is 10% single-family dwellings. Is there a minimum for multifamily? Is there a maximum coverage for residential areas? Commercial areas as residential? Because it's unclear from the chart, and since this is all being covered in this one chart, I don't know what the percentages are.
For lot coverage in commercial, for the commercial uses?
And what's the minimum open space in a commercial area? Because that's not on here either. Too many questions? I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I don't know whether we need, that's why I'm asking the questions, because this is sort of this is a new thing, so I'm just asking sort of a completely new thing, so by putting this residential in a commercial, so I don't know.
I'm not sure about the lot coverage in the commercial uses. I do think it's covered in the PUD section, but I'm not certain.
Well, the chart indicates that your maximum coverage would be 30%.
By structures in residential areas, but what I'm saying is it all considered to be residential, or what's parts commercial and what's parts residential, when you're now in putting the commercial in there with the residential?
We want to table this. You guys can go outside, talk about it. We can bring it back up in 20 minutes or so.
That sounds fine.
Is that fair, Mr. Tom?
Sure.
So, yeah, that's fine. We'll do public hearing. All right, we'll go ahead.
Come back and ask them questions.
Is that going to give you all enough time, or you guys want 20 minutes? We got a lot of resolutions we can do, and we can bring this back up in 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so we'll do the public hearing, then we'll hold this, and then we'll come back a little bit later. So anyone here wishing to speak on Bill 5516, I do believe we have one signed up. Mr., I'm sorry, I'm having a tough time pronouncing that, Ms. Shindek? Shehab. Mr. Shehab? And if anyone else is wishing to speak on 5516, now would be the time to come forward as well. We do have 5 additional spots.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I understand you have plans to ease the development in the Maryland and the Baltimore Hill and the Odenton BWI complex, Fort Meade. Fort Meade now has 58,000 people. Fort Meade is a bloody mess right now because Congress did not authorize sufficient money for security at the gates and for the road infrastructure. And I will not address the road problem because I'm sure you're all familiar with it. There are times from the Circle in Odenton, to get to Fort Meade, you have to cross 170 and 175, and you can sit through 3 or 4 lights. Now, what we need there to straighten it out is a moratorium on all further development in that area until this adequate facilities bill is addressed. How many schools are we going to need with 58,000 people? I'm sure several of them have children. What about the police department? What about the firemen? I'm sorry, good heavens. The firefighters. This county has let things get out of hand because of the mess we have. There's such a thing as quality of life, and we ain't got it anymore. I chaired a committee 30 years ago when I had black hair and I was young. And we recommended a multi-level parking garage. Isn't that incredible that uninformed citizens could figure they need a garage there because Arundel County was asphalting West County to make parking spaces. That's not nice. We also came up with recommendations concerning the road network around Fort Meade. And of course, they didn't have 58,000, but they had a number of people. But you see, that area was growing. And it's un-American to believe in planned orderly growth.
Please summarize.
The American way that I have found is you go in, put it in development, bring all these people in, and then worry about what we're going to do about it. I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
How's that, Peter?
Mr. St. Clair?
Just to follow on with what Colonel Shehab had to say, he had an editorial. It wasn't in the obituaries, though. It was in the editorials. And he addressed most of the things. In fact, you all should have a packet on it that was passed out. It's for you all to do a little bit of background, a little bit of study. It's almost as bad as the county exec recommended we put a library in Patuxent. Now, I understand Two Rivers is going to have 2,000 people or 2,000 units in it, but I think it's a little bit premature to put a library in Two Rivers. There's also one in here that talks about Mountain Road. I don't know if that has anything to do with a county executive or not, but it's ridiculous what the plan is for Mountain Road, sidewalks and all other kind of stuff, and then they're going to have to come through and tear all that stuff up. But they mentioned on this this bill that it said something about South County. I looked on the map. I don't see any South County in this map. Okay, so I don't know. Again, and what I don't understand is they mentioned town center, and the Odenton town center is not even included in this. I don't know why Fort Meade's included, because Fort Meade is it's its own little thing. The county has nothing to do with Fort Meade. Brack, okay, which was 11 years ago. 11 years ago, 2005. And we're still putzing around with trying to get 175 fixed. It's just, I'm moving back to Virginia. Okay? Because the roads down there and the accommodations down there are a lot better than they are up here. I thought when I came back, things would be, as I say, more better, but they're more worser. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Julie Johnson, P.O. Box 6634, Annapolis, Maryland. It's difficult to follow such colorful and interesting people with such long-term historical knowledge of the area. My concern is that this is just another bill where we're helping our poor impoverished developers, get subsidized by the counties, because as nice as they are and as sweet as they are, it just doesn't seem right to be subsidizing them. Plus, I have these other concerns. I'm reading this book about the secret history of the war on cancer. I don't know how many of you spend very much time in the vicinity of Glen Burnie and the airports and stuff, but even down here in Annapolis, there are times when you can smell the fumes from the airplanes, and petrochemicals are carcinogenic. So I have concerns. There are other industrial reasons for being really concerned, about some brownfield, areas and things. I have profound concerns about the intensity of development. I understand Congress wants, Fort Meade to grow, but where are you going to put people, and how do you accommodate, the air traffic? And I was recently talking to somebody about in my youth when I came to Anne Arundel County, I used to fly out of Lee Airport. You guys keep allowing the land around Lee Airport to keep being developed. And I was a good student pilot. I never crashed. But one day the guy ahead of me did, and he flew into the barn. So why do you increase, the development around an airport? I understand developers' view on this, but I guess I oppose that kind of illogical land use planning, because it seems to be counterintuitive. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DeVito.
Eric DeVito, 2003 Willow Glen Court, Crofton, Maryland. And Harry, I guess, hello and goodbye. Welcome back, and I guess you're leaving again. Okay. Good seeing you too. I really just came up to address the technical questions that Ms. Tate raised from my perspective. I've done a few PUDs in my day, and number one, the first question I think is really, if needed, I guess a really easy technical amendment. Would you just say business complex auxiliary uses for C2 and C3 districts in accordance with, to do, that's a really simple change that could address that and what I would consider technical. For your other question, the way PUDs work is technically you establish all of your design guidelines in the PUD process. So in front of the hearing officer, you propose your design guidelines, you propose your setbacks, you propose your coverages, you propose all of your basically your general design criteria are established through the PUD, and then you get the order from the hearing officer, which locks in those design guidelines that you then have to develop the site to. So while I understand the question, I get where you're going with it, I also think that's all going to be addressed through the PUD process through the order of the hearing officer. There would be, in essence, you'll get the maximum coverage through that. That's the way the residential PUDs work, though. And that's basically the way this would do for the residential component of these. That's how it could work. If you guys believe that there are technical amendments, I'm not going to get in the middle of that, but I'm just trying to explain to you how the PUD process works in the county.
Very good. Thank you. All right, we are, public hearing is now closed on this bill. We are going to table it. I might need to get a vote on that to hold it just till the end of the meeting.
Move the table.
Parliamentarian.
Yes, please.
Can you please call the roll on holding this bill till after the last resolution is called?
Mr. Grasso?
Aye.
Mr. Pruski?
Aye.
Mr. Perutka? Aye. Mr. Trumbauer?
Aye.
Mr. Walker?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Fink?
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Motion to suspend the discussion on this bill until later in the meeting is passed.
Thank you. We'll move on to resolutions. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Resolution 4216.
Resolution appointing and reappointing members to the Anne Arundel County Adult Public Guardianship Review Board.
Mr. Marzick.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Bernie Marzick in the County Executive's Office. Resolution 4216 addresses new appointments and expiring members on the Adult Public Guardianship Review Board. We're asking for your approval of 3 new members to replace early retirements from this board: John McDonald, Linda Dennis, and Pamela Lubby Smith. And we're also asking for your approval of the reappointment of 4 existing members: Robin Scherzo, Blair Alexander, Ellen Miller, and Julie Klunk-Provan. You should have the resumes before you in your packets.
Any questions from the council? Seeing none, we'll open up the public hearing. Anyone here wishing to speak on Resolution 4316? Seeing no movement, we'll close the public hearing. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Resolution 4316.
Resolution appointing and reappointing members to the Anne Arundel County Adult Public Guardianship Review Board.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Grasso.
Aye.
Mr. Pruski.
Aye.
Mr. Perutka. Mr. Trumbauer.
Aye.
Mr. Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Fink.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Resolution 4216 is passed.
Please read the title of Resolution 4316.
Resolution proposing an amendment to the Charter of Anne Arundel County to allow the issuance of interim notes to temporarily fund appropriations for capital projects.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Bernie Mars, the County Executive's Office. With me at the table is Joey Mussog, Comptroller, Karen Henry from the Department of Public Works, and Lori Blair Klassmeyer from the Office of Law. This resolution is to address the issue we talked about again this year at the budget, which is the timing of the budget being passed and the ability to pass a bond ordinance soon thereafter. This resolution is a charter amendment that will provide standing authority to issue interim notes to finance stranded appropriation for capital projects. If this is approved by the council and by the voters, this will be the first of 2 steps. We'll have to come back with another bill to amend the county's code. The code provision will be crafted to provide ongoing authorization to issue notes to fund the appropriations. As a consequence, on July 1st each year, the council would have the authority to place legal to borrow to finance these appropriations. We would also still be required to pass a bond ordinance each year. Ms. Mussog worked with our bond counsel, Bill Henn, to craft this legislation, and she and Department of Public Works are here to answer any questions you may have and also talk about the actual implementation of this.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Trumbauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Auditor points out a concern in her blue letter that in the unlikely event that the bond ordinance did not pass, or if the ordinance were challenged within the 45-day waiting period, that there might not be long-term debt proceeds to repay the interim notes. Do you agree with that concern, and what would happen if that did come about?
So from a legal perspective, I think Lori's probably best to answer what would happen through a referendum process, which would be a very remote possibility since there's none.
Sure.
But first, this resolution doesn't give that authority to start the spending July 1. The second piece is what gives that authority, the code change. So,
but this is the first piece.
Right.
I mean, so, if that is a concern, I'd rather address it now than until we do the first piece, and then you're like, well, we're halfway there. You know.
We would have the interim authority to finance with those notes, and that would be fine. So we'd have short-term notes that would have to be repaid at the end of the next fiscal year in which they were paid. So in the unlikely event that there was some sort of referendum on the bond ordinance, we would have another year to pass a bond ordinance and refinance them at that time.
I see. So we're not reverted to having bake sales outside of the Arundel.
No.
Okay, so it's a legitimate concern, but you think we would be able to weather it through the process you just described?
Because we would have another budget timing to go through. We would have interim notes that would be filling the gap, and then in that next year, you would presumably pass the a bond ordinance in the second year. I mean, we really have bigger problems if we can't pass these bond ordinances and fund our capital program.
If I might, Mr. Chair, Madam Auditor, that satisfied me, but I'm not a bond expert. That may come as a surprise to you. But does the administration's response allay your concerns at all?
Yes, it's a better circumstances. When I first read it, I thought it had to be repaid by the end of that fiscal year.
Sure.
But they have another year, which means you have more time to pass another ordinance or to make other plans for paying off any interim notes that you've issued.
Cool. I feel better about it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Anyone here wishing to speak on 4316? Seeing no movement, we'll close the public hearing. Madam Secretary, please read the title of 4316.
A resolution entitled Charter Amendment Interim Notes, resolution proposing an amendment to the Charter of Anne Arundel County to allow the issuance of interim notes to temporarily fund appropriations for capital projects.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Grasso.
Aye.
Mr. Pruski.
Aye.
Mr. Perutka.
Aye.
Mr. Trumbauer.
Aye.
Mr. Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Fink?
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Resolution 4316 is passed.
Please read the title of Resolution 4416.
Resolution adopting a revised debt management policy for Anne Arundel County, Maryland.
Mr. Marzick.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Bernie Marzick in the County Executive's Office. With me at the table is Joey Mussog again from the Office of Finance, Lori Blair Klessmeyer from the Office of Law, and Mr. Hammond, Budget Officer. Resolution 4416 is an update to the debt policy to adjust the debt affordability measures to what was presented in the fiscal year 17 budget book that was recently approved by you all through the regular budget process. All these measures have been reviewed by our financial advisor in Prague. Ms. Mussog sent you the email on Friday regarding the comments from our financial advisor, and also has been reviewed by the rating agencies who did not express any concerns. We would be happy to answer any questions you have on the policy.
Any discussion? Any questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Anyone here wishing to speak on 4416? Seeing no movement, the public hearing is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of 4416.
Resolution adopting a revised debt management policy for Anne Arundel County, Maryland.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Grasso?
Aye.
Mr. Pruski?
Aye.
Mr. Perutka? Mr. Trumbauer?
Aye.
Mr. Walker?
Nay.
Mr. Smith? Mr. Fink?
Aye.
So I have 5 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, and 1 abstention. Resolution 4416 passes.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of 4516.
Resolution approving the application to the United States Department of Justice Office of Justice Programs for a grant.
All right, Mr. Marzick.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, coming to the table with me is Ham Tyler from the Office of Law and Michelle Tringali from the Police Department, who are representatives of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. Resolution 4516 provides $174 grant that is administered by the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. CJCC seeks to break the criminal justice cycle through treatment and family intervention programs funded in part through this grant. This is primarily accomplished through the adult and juvenile drug court programs. The cost funded by this grant related to special courts include salary and fringe benefits for case managers, court coordinator, and paralegal staff. The grant also provides funding for the treatment of incarcerated individuals with co-occurring disorders, as well as restorative juvenile justice diversion program. Mr. Tyler and Ms. Tringali would be happy to answer any questions council has on this grant.
All right, any questions from the council? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Anyone here wishing to speak on Resolution 4516? Seeing no movement, the public hearing is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title.
Resolution approving the application to the United States Department of Justice Office of Justice Programs for a grant.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Grasso?
Aye.
Mr. Pruski?
Aye.
Mr. Perutka?
Nay.
Mr. Trumbauer?
Aye.
Mr. Walker?
Aye.
Mr. Smith? Mr. Fink?
Aye.
6 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. Resolution 4516 is passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of 4716.
Resolution supporting the removal and replacement of the current members of the Anne Arundel County Board of License Commissioners.
All right. I do want to just state for the record that I do have several different liquor licenses in this county that do plan on participating in these votes because they're non-binding and they're just resolutions. Mr. Grasso.
Being as we're all part of full disclaimers, I do have a liquor license in my name too. With that being said, if the council does remember correctly, we all supported a 7-0 vote just a short period of time to call for term limits on the liquor board. In this situation right here, we're asking to replace the current liquor board commissioners with new people. I think it's only fair to allow the other part of the population to participate in this. I find it ridiculous that someone is in there since 1995 and could possibly think that they're that great that no one else in this world could possibly want that job. I mean, a job, if I'm not mistaken, pays somewhere around $18,000 a year, and I think that the population or the public has the right to apply for the position of the liquor. Instead, what we have there is we have 3 people in the commissioners that stay in time after time, time after time. And the problem is that when you keep people in there so long, I believe in my heart that hanky-panky starts to happen, all right? We had this problem also with our Board of Appeals, and it was my piece of legislation that called for term limits on the Board of Appeals. People were constantly in there, okay? And you're not going to sit there and tell me that some hanky-panky's not going on. So if it's not my problem, my issue here is that, what is the big deal? Why is it that our senators are so afraid to put new people into those positions? Is it because they're getting something out of it? That's the only thing I could possibly think. Who in their right mind thinks that someone's been in there since 1995, thinks that that person's that great that no one else can apply for that job? That's my feelings about it. So my whole thing is that the council, you know how I feel about this. I'm not calling names on anybody, but I just believe that the population or the public, however you want to put it, has the right to serve just like these people have served. And being in there since 1995 is just taking advantage of the situation. So I would hope the administration would stand with me on this.
Mr. Marzick?
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Bernie Marzick in the County Executive's Office. We applaud Mr. Grasso and his efforts. He's raised this issue, or these issues related to the liquor board, and representing a lot of the citizens' concerns for the liquor board, both here before the council and with the General Assembly last year during session, I know. We think Bill 4716 is a step in the right direction to begin reforming the county's liquor board, as well as the structural issues that have been raised. We have discussed with Mr. Grasso and with others the idea of really doing a comprehensive look at the liquor laws in the county. There's been very varied interests who have expressed concerns regarding these laws, and we think it's a good time to really take a comprehensive look at both the board as well as the structural issues with the liquor laws themselves that have raised a lot of these concerns. So we would be supportive of his efforts.
So you're supporting this resolution? Yep. All right. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Bruca?
If I could just weigh in, I also thank you very much, Mr. Grasso, for your concern about this and for leading the discussion about this. I'm not personally aware of activities that would constitute corruption in my own mind. I don't have that knowledge, but I do share the concern that the situation is ripe for that to exist. I would point out that Article 34 of the Maryland Declaration of Rights says this about this matter. It says that a long continuance in the executive departments of power or trust is dangerous to liberty. A rotation, therefore, in those departments is one of the best securities of permanent freedom. So the Maryland Constitution Declaration of Rights actually addresses this and would be, is supportive of this effort. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Smith?
I too applaud my colleague here from the 2nd District on this resolution. I think it's important to, if you have concerns for how the process is working, that you try to address those. Again, I'm just not sure that when it comes to removing and replacing members, that's our responsibility or our job to sort of dictate to the to another branch of government to some extent. What they should do with the current members that are in there. I mean, we obviously govern ourselves, and we can put in resolutions that affect our piece of the pie. I just want to tell my friend here that I can't, because I know some of the members of the liquor board, and I'm not sure that they've done anything illegal. I haven't been as involved as Mr. Grasso here. But I don't want to sort of leave it open to interpretation that individuals that are a part of the liquor board have done anything wrong or anything illegal. Now, I do believe that obviously folks should have the opportunity to sort of rotate in positions, but this certainly goes a step, a bridge, a little bit too much for me. So. But I do commend the sponsor for sort of trying to address the issue that's important to him. So, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Peruski.
I just want to chime in because one of the things I did serve on the Board of Appeals for 3.5 years and certainly understand the argument from one angle. I also served on the Board of Ed. But one of the struggles I have that Councilman Smith brought forward is that, we're taking a stance on an issue that we really don't have control on. I certainly voted, as Mr. Grasso stated, and I would vote again on the concerns over the budget because we have control over that. But my understanding is the governor reappointed some of these folks to the board and could do so again. Even with our resolution. So really, my concern certainly is sending a message of something that we have no authority over, which I know there's concerns. That's really my angle. But in terms of the budget and being able to control that end and what fees that they have, because we have the purse, the power of the purse. But in terms of appointing these members, whatever else, even with this resolution, nothing may go forward. But I don't know, when was the last appointment, Mr. Grasso, do you know of the membership? Were they recently appointed by the current governor? I know that it changes every year, but didn't they get reappointed?
Well,
by Governor Hogan?
the problem that we're having here is that the constituents, as you know, reach out to us, and they have their problems. So the governor doesn't know or doesn't feel the people unless we go to the governor and say, we've got a problem here. And it's consistent of businesses coming to me thinking they're being treated unfairly with this liquor board. But just forget about the liquor board in general of not treating people fairly. Who in their right mind would agree that someone needs to be in there since 1995? The same person. That alone right there should tell you that something's wrong with our system. Okay? I'm just saying that let's give other people a fair shot over here, Maybe Miss Johnson wants to be on the liquor board. Why can't she be on the liquor board? So we keep putting the same people over and over again unless someone tells the governor that we have issues or we just like to have some new people in there to get a different look on things. He's not going to know anything different. So as my colleagues might say over here, it is our business because we, the council people, are the closest to the people's heartbeat, okay? When they have the problems, they come to us. They don't go to their delegation. They don't go to their senators because we, the council, we deal with the dog that's barking at night, the dog junk that's in the yard, the junky car that's in the yard. We deal with the people every day. We are the ones that are responsible for that. So this resolution, and I'm asking for support over here, is that I spoke to the county executive that I would hope it would pass. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the resolution to the governor and put it on his desk and say, this is what the people of Anne Arundel County is asking for. And at that point, he chooses to do nothing about it, then I wipe my hands clean. Because I heard what my constituents said, your constituents, his constituents, and I'm just moving it forward to make sure that it gets in front of Mr. Hogan right there and say, this is what we want. Now, if he don't do nothing about it, then that's on him. But at least me as a councilman, I did what the people asked. And that's what I'm saying here. I'm not calling anybody a criminal. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that when you put people in there too long, you can have hanky-panky. And the longer we let people stay in there without telling the governor, you're asking for it, okay? And if you're going to see in the next, when we talk about the next resolution, you're really going to see how messed up things are. So that's all I'm asking you guys. And Councilman Smith says it's not our right to get involved. It is our right to be involved, my friend, because the people come to us, and I said it for the second time, we're the closest to the people's heartbeat. By far, any senator or any delegate. Just that simple. That being said.
Take a minute to chime in, being as everyone else did. I guess with this resolution, I don't so much mind the asking for new people to serve, because I agree with you that these guys, 20 years is a long time on there. What causes me heartburn here is that we're calling for their removal, which is basically we're asking them to be fired. And right now, I'm just not comfortable with asking that these guys be fired. As time gets closer to the appointment process, which I believe is next July, and there's a resolution that says, hey, we'd like to see some fresh faces on there, I'd certainly be comfortable with that. So that's just my 2 cents. Mr. Smith.
No, I think Mr. Grasso mentioned it earlier, but I mean, really outside of the issue that he's sort of educated me on, I really have not had constituents call me about, and you could FOIA my email and see that there really hasn't been any long-term liquor license issues that have been sort of sent to me. And so, he raised the issue about constituents complaining about it. They've certainly gone to him, I think, just having a conversation, but I have not really had any significant amount of communication with business owners or folks who have liquor license issues complaining to me that something is sort of aloof. And so, and to ask for these folks to be removed when there is no, when I haven't seen, there's certainly speculation. I just don't want to get to the point where we're just judging people from this bench or from this dais and charging them with allegations and not having those facts to back it up. That's my only concern, and so just wanted to raise it to you. Thank you,
Mr. Gressel.
Maybe there seems to be a misunderstanding here. I'm not saying to go in there and fire them and remove them. Their time is coming up in March. By the time we get down with the governor and the General Assembly, okay, this resolution is to go in there to make sure that these 3 individuals do not stay in there again. I'm not saying go in there right now and fire them and yank them out of there. I just want confirmation from our governor that these 3 people won't be in there again. They've been in there since 1995. That's long enough. Okay? So this idea that we're going to fire these people and call them up, say don't come to work the next day is not what we're saying here. I'm getting tired of getting a lot of lip service from a bunch of people to say they support this, okay? But when March rolls around, it'll be a totally different game. So the governor can say, hey, to the senators, hey, we need 3 new people in there. They've served admirably. You know, they've done a great job. Whatever you want to say, but I just don't want the same 3 people in there again. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's what this resolution's saying.
Mr. Gressel, I read it a little bit different. I mean, it says remove the current members, and we're asking them to do it a year early.
Would you like we can put an amendment in it that says not to reappoint? We can hold this, and we'll put an amendment in it that says to not reappoint. I am okay with that. You want to table it? That's fine. You want to put an amendment in not to reappoint the same members that are in there? I'm okay with that. I just don't want I don't want these problems to continue. I've had enough of it.
I think Mr. Grasso is probably running for a state position here shortly.
Oh, I'm telling you, I'm hot.
So, any other discussion on this bill, or resolution rather? We'll go ahead and hold the public hearing. Anyone here wishing to speak on Resolution 4716? Seeing no movement, the public hearing is now closed. Mr. Grasso, you making a motion to hold this? Or?
Yes, I'm making a motion to hold it, and I'm going to follow it behind with an amendment.
Second.
Second, Mr. Walker.
So we got a motion to hold, and then we're seconding it.
Okay.
So we call the roll on the hold?
Are we holding it till the next meeting?
Till the next meeting in September. First meeting of September.
That's fine.
Okay. Mr. Grasso?
Aye.
Mr. Pruski?
Aye.
Mr. Perutka?
Aye.
Mr. Trumbauer?
Aye.
Mr. Walker?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Fink?
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Motion to hold Resolution 4716 until the first meeting in September is passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of 4816.
Resolution urging the Maryland General Assembly to increase the number of members of the Anne Arundel County Board of License Commissioners and to provide for a quorum on all voting matters related to liquor licenses.
Just want to go on the record once again, say I have multiple liquor licenses in this county, but I do plan on participating in this vote. Mr. Grasso.
Okay, to pigtail on the resolution we just talked about, some of my colleagues might not be aware that the commissioners, of course, is 3 members. It's also under Article 2B that one person can come up and actually cast a vote. So if they have a bad day that day, they can either wreck somebody's life or make someone's success. Now, we on the council, as we know, require 4 votes for a quorum, but the commissioners don't. Only one person has to show up. So what I'm saying is pretty clear here is that, one, we take it from a 3-member. We're asking the General Assembly again to take it from a 3 to a 5-member because there's less chance of things going on. And the second thing we're asking is that a quorum is required, that there's at least 3 commissioners there to either wreck somebody's life or to make someone's life. Okay? Having one person there is not a safe way to run. We don't run the council like that, and I don't think the Liquor Commission is going to run. And again, assume this resolution would pass, I'm going to take this and put it right in front of the governor's office and say, here it is. Now it's up to you to get the delegates or whoever it is to introduce legislation, or we go to the Anne Arundel County delegation and get them to sponsor a bill to take it from a 3-member to a 5-member, whatever. But having one person make a decision is to me, is just setting up for failure, and it's just something that just doesn't make sense to me. We operate by 4. They should operate by a quorum also. That's all I got to say.
Very good. Mr. Marzick.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Bernie Marzick in the County Executive's Office. We're supportive of this resolution. I would just add one part to this. We're not certain if 5 is the magic number, 7 or 9, as far as the number of commissioners on the liquor board. Again, that's why we would like to take a more comprehensive look at this and other issues, as I said in the past resolution. But we do think there needs to be an increase in the number of commissioners. But whether that magic number is 5, 7, 9, whatever it may be, it is something we need to look at.
Very good. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Persky?
Mr. Mars, do you have a list of what other counties have in terms of what their rules are? I mean, obviously, I know some have 5, but in terms of a quorum, is that?
I don't have that in front of me.
Okay.
We could get that to you, Mr. Persky.
Any other questions?
I want to make one thing, Mr. Chairman. Go, Mr. Miller.
I was also going to ask the sponsor, because the 5, I'm not sure of, but certainly the quorum is big. Would the sponsor also entertain separating those two in a resolution?
Sure.
Where I'm just, because I agree, I was thinking of 5, I was thinking of 7, where you had one commissioner from each district that could serve on there, because that's what in my head, I'm thinking 7 might be the better number. But the quorum, I think if there is a situation where only one person could vote on that's probably unfair. And so while I'm certainly with you with the quorum, I'm just not necessarily sold on the 5. I think it should be 7 to have one commissioner from each district. So.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to table this one.
Hold that. We're going to do the public hearing, and then we'll do it. Just because we have advertised it. So we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing on 4816. Seeing nobody, we'll close the public hearing on 4816. Mr. Grasso has a motion to hold this bill to the beginning, or this resolution to the beginning of September. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Grasso.
Aye.
Mr. Pruski.
Aye.
Mr. Perutka.
Aye.
Mr. Trumbauer.
Aye.
Mr. Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Fink.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Motion to hold the vote on Resolution 4816 until the first meeting in September is passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of Resolution 5016.
A resolution entitled Charter Amendment Legislative Branch Duties of the County Auditor.
All right, Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, we've introduced Resolution 5016. Through the last couple of years on this council, I've seen the auditor do not only Ms. Dickinson, but Ms. Sutherland before her, perform her duties exceptionally well. And there have been times, though, that I think she has, or the auditor's position has been inhibited in their ability to research things that they need to have access to. And so this proposal in front of us would change the charter to allow the auditor to have access to other documentation that I believe is pertinent to her role in researching, her and her staff's role into researching the different things that they decide to audit as directed by either the council or as they choose to by their own choice. So that's why I've introduced that. I know that there's some questions from the Office of Law initially about the way the initial resolution was worded. I have an amendment here in front of us. It'll be coming up in just a second after we have our public hearing that might address some of those issues, but wanted to put this forward for your consideration. Thank you.
Mr. Mars.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Bernie Marzick in the County Executive's Office. We would ask you to oppose this resolution. We think that the way this resolution is currently drafted is really outside the scope of the auditor's role. And we think it really clearly violates the separation of powers between the executive and the legislative branch for the materials that could be obtained under this resolution. We also think that this is an overreach and sets a dangerous precedent for materials, again, that could be obtained. So just to speak quickly about some of the items that are of concern is that the way this is written now, you could have attorney-client privilege information be obtained by the auditor. You could have confidential personnel information obtained by the auditor. You could have people's bank accounts, social security numbers, things of that nature be obtained. And there's also, I believe, a mistake in the drafting of the bill originally, which I think Mr. Walker's amendment will address, but related to the exclusion of attorney-client privileged information as it's written in the purpose paragraph of this bill, which doesn't seem to be the intent, but makes it still a little bit unclear. So we would ask that you would oppose this. And the last point I would make is that there are certain documents that should be privileged documents that are deliberative documents between executive branch employees that should be protected, and we would ask that you would oppose this resolution.
Very good. Any discussion from the council? Go ahead and open up the public hearing. Anyone here wishing to speak on Resolution 5016?
Julie Johnson, P.O. Box 6634, Annapolis, Maryland. Here I go again. I'm going to put my foot in my mouth. I support this. I think it's really, really important for public policy that the public have an opportunity to have a watchdog looking out for the taxpayers' interests. For example, we know that sometimes when people apply for building permits, in the words of the chairman of the Board of Appeals, he says, well, nobody wants to pay more than they have to. But I said, but, you know, how can you pay how can you claim that a shed is $1,000? You know, especially when there's no existing shed to reframe and re-roof. I mean, there's some really serious problems that are ongoing within this you know, this whole government. It's what alarms the public. It's why you know, you're facing this absolutely insane, you know, political year. The public is upset. And so therefore, I would really strongly support the maximum amount of scrutiny. If there's some problem, you know, with some detail within the bill, well, obviously, I would want you to fix that. But I mean, you know, I've asked for investigations of these various departments, and everything gets swept under the rug. And I know I'm sure that I can't be the only person who has asked you to investigate what appears to be obvious, blatant, and flagrant misconduct. And some of it involves money. Some of it involves simply conduct. So, in general, I strongly support the spirit of this legislation, and you know, would ask that any defects be corrected.
Thank you. All right, public hearing on 5016 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the resolution 5016.
A resolution entitled Charter Amendment Legislative Branch Duties of the County Auditor.
We do have one amendment. Please read amendment number 1.
This amendment removes language regarding information available, adds language to clarify records and personnel available to the county auditor to perform audits and audit duties, and removes confidentiality language as information provided to the county auditor is confidential.
Do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved. Second.
All right, there's a second. Mr. Walker?
As I stated earlier, this was prompted, some of it was prompted by the questions raised by the Office of Law. Ms. Duden worked with Ms. Tate on some of the adjustments to the language. I feel comfortable, and I ask for your support.
Very good. Any discussion on Amendment 1?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Marzick, Mr. Person?
Madam Auditor, I just want to know if you could comment on this bill. I know that certainly you're our independent eyes and ears, so I wanted to just see what your opinion is, if it's a concern or overall your view.
Sure. The issue that's happened a couple times over the past year or so has been where the language cash receipts and cash disbursements has been used as a limiting factor to what the auditor's office is allowed to see. When you read Section 311, it seems to want to provide access to documents, and that terminology can be used to say we wouldn't be able to look at any documents that would not relate to cash receipts or cash disbursements, which can eliminate a lot of documents that we would need to make assessments on certain situations. So the concerns that came up on the initial drafting was in the confidentiality clauses, and that I had a question on that one as well, because it seemed to say I could look at confidential information, but I couldn't report on it. So that was a concern to me as well. The language that you see in the amendment comes from the Association of Local Government Auditors that provide language that they suggest be put into legislation to provide the auditor's office with a strong independent authority or access to records, employees, that type of thing. So the language you see in that, the second paragraph of the amendment comes from the Association of Local Government Auditors.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Walker?
Ms. Dickinson, thank you for that explanation. In your opinion, would this, I guess your opinion is that this bill as amended, with this amendment, if this amendment were to pass, or this resolution, sorry, were to pass, and this would go before the public, this would offer not only the council, but your office additional transparency within county government. Is that correct?
In my opinion, yes, it offers greater access to records.
Thank you.
All right, any discussion? We'll go ahead and vote on Amendment 1. Please call the roll.
Mr. Grasso?
Aye.
Mr. Pruski?
Aye.
Mr. Perutka?
Aye.
Mr. Trumbauer?
Aye.
Mr. Walker?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Fink?
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 1 is passed.
All right, we'll go ahead and vote on the final bill now as well. Please call roll on Resolution 5016 as amended.
Mr. Grasso?
Nay.
Mr. Pruski?
Aye.
Mr. Perutka?
Nay.
Mr. Trumbauer?
Aye.
Mr. Walker?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Fink?
Nay.
4 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative. Resolution 5016 is defeated.
Madam Secretary, please read Resolution 5116.
A resolution entitled Charter Amendment, Attorney to the County Council.
Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I brought up this resolution because over the last, I would say, 4 years, off and on since I've been on the council, I think we, the council and the executive branches, at times have had issues with our perception of the Office of Law and their role. The Office of Law is a position, and and I want to sort of preface this by saying that this is not about Ms. Duden. She and I spoke earlier today as well, but more about what I perceive as what is the right role for the county attorney, as well as what our role is in the process of receiving advice from that individual. And this question has been raised before in the past. I think other councils have sort of wrestled with this topic on whether or not we should have an attorney. Now, we do have Ms. Tate, who is our legislative sort of advisor and spends a lot of time focused on it. And between the 7 of us, I think that in of itself is a full-time job, and she's probably, it's probably well suited for her to just focus on that. And this resolution that's being proposed by no means changes the dynamic of the county attorney, as well as our role with leveraging the county attorney for advice. But I do think, and one of the things I've learned over the past is when it's in writing, there is no deviation from, if it's in black and white, there's no sort of misrepresentation or misinterpretation. Because before this resolution, or even if it passes, we, the council, can hire legal advice, can hire an attorney to go and provide legal advice to us on an issue that we may have questions on. But what this resolution does do is it codifies that in writing, and it spells out, so again, that there is no confusion on what our authorities are and what our ability is when it comes to receiving legal advice. I found it tough for individuals like the Office of Law to be in a situation where they're appointed by the administration, but yet they serve both us, the legislative branch, as well as the executive branch. And I know this setup is not unique. There are other jurisdictions that have a very similar makeup. But I do think at times it's difficult to get, at least my perception and my feelings were that I often believe that it's hard to serve two interests when you're appointed by one entity. And so this is no different than our county auditor, who sort of works at the discretion of the council and leveraging what our interests are, and John Hammond, who works as the budget officer and works and appointed by the county executive to work budget issues. And I've uncovered from both of their interactions, though it's been at least abrasive at times, certainly with the previous auditor who had been there for a number of years. So I thought that I would propose this question on whether or not we sort of submit within language our ability to sort of leverage an attorney, even though, again, without this resolution, we can do that. But it does change the charter to specify that we can receive legal advice from both the county attorney as well as our own legal person. And it simply puts it in writing. And so I'll certainly defer to the administration right now. I know they probably have a few discussion points to hit on, but my goal is not to sort of create some friction. There's a part of me that believes that you know, if we can, and maybe the solution isn't this resolution, potentially. I haven't mentioned this before, that maybe the council is also involved in the selection or at least the appointment of the county attorney. That could also be another option that's sort of put out there, just like we are with the health officer. And I wouldn't sort of try to dive more into the administration, but certainly the county attorney is a position that has wide range effects on all the departments. And so having us weigh in on that individual, maybe it's something that we want to consider. If not, but I'm certainly willing to discuss it, and I think this is an effort to do that. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Administration.
Mr. Chair, members of the council, Bernie Mars, the County Executive's Office. We would ask you to oppose this resolution. We don't feel that this resolution is necessary for 3 reasons, and I'll be very brief. First is from a legal perspective. The council already has the ability to appoint an attorney under Section 314 of the Charter. Second, from a practical perspective, the council has existing legislative counsel with Ms. Tate, who often opines on these issues and is often involved with these type of legal issues, as we just saw a short time ago, and has often been involved in giving her legal opinion on different bills coming forward to council. And third, we would question whether there's the need for the workload for another full-time attorney to handle these legal opinions. So,
Mr. Chair.
For those reasons, we would ask that the council oppose this bill, a resolution, excuse me.
Mr. Smith.
So one, this resolution does not create another position. It simply spells out that we may appoint an attorney to the county council, just as we may appoint or hire an attorney to do legal issues for us today. And so this doesn't add any FTEs to our sort of structure, so we're not adding to that. The second thing with Ms. Tate, from my perspective, I mean, I think her whole purpose, certainly her value, at least for me, is that she has been focused on the legislative piece of legislation and sometimes the legalities of it. Not really a legal officer to some extent because her time has been focused on that, whereas an attorney could focus on other sort of holistic policy type differences that we, the council, or even the administration may have. And as I mentioned before, this is I feel bad even bring this up just because I do like Mrs. Tootin, but at the same time I still have to represent and try to the interest of the legislative branch or the council, and whether or not do we think we get the biggest bang for our buck, and from at least having the ability, which we have right now, but it just takes out any sort of question about whether or not that exists because it codifies it in language. I know the the deputy attorney, I don't know if she or the administration just spoke, but I'll defer back to you all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any questions from the council?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Trumbaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Blair, if this were to pass, can you speculate as to how the relationship between the Office of Law and the County Council may change?
I will say let me say it this way. One of the concerns that was raised when there were prior attempts to do this, to have a separate attorney put into the charter, one of the concerns raised is if there's conflicting evidence, conflicting opinions given by the 2 separate attorneys. I contacted Harford County because Harford County is the only county we could locate which actually has, under its charter, the ability to have a separate legislative council, and they do in fact have a separate legislative council. I talked to an attorney there who's worked there about at least 10 years. I've worked with her back and forth, and they actually got into a situation, she advised me, where one branch sued the other branch. Now, that's a little difficult because there's only one county, and I'm sure this lawsuit didn't go very far. She didn't have all the details, and she did say she would get back to me with some information. But what she did say is it does from time to time happen where the two branches have two different legal opinions, and as a practical matter, they have to sit down and work it out because there is only one county. So that is kind of out there.
Would it affect, in your opinion, I don't know if it's attorney-client privilege or whatever you want to call it, but right now, and you can read it in, in this language here, I mean, the Office of Law is the legal advisor for the council.
Yes.
I mean, if I call you up and I say, please draft me a bill, you do that. I mean, that's part of what happens. If I have a meeting about planning and zoning, Mr. Swain usually shows up, and I'm glad that he does. And so I'm wondering at this point, and again, this is speculative, but if this were to pass and ultimately get implemented, would the administration or would the agency heads have any discretion to say, no, you have your own lawyer, I'm not going to come to your meeting? I don't think that would happen.
Right.
I'm just trying to look at the structure of this.
Right. I think it depends on what ultimately passes. If the notion is that this is some type of supplemental attorney to what our office does, then I assume our office will still continue to provide services, still continue to keep, if you call me and you ask me to draft a piece of legislation, that's confidential from the administration. If the administration calls and asks me to draft a piece of legislation, that's confidential to the council until such time as either gives me permission to share it with the other branch. So we do that right now. And just to Mr. Smith's point, we have 21 attorneys in our office. There's only one who's actually appointed by the county executive, and that's Ms. Duden.
Sure.
So the rest of us are merit employees. We don't serve at the pleasure of the county executive.
Understood.
So in that respect, I think that we do have that confidentiality. The impression I got from Harford County, the way it works there is it's a total separate division. I don't know I'm not sure how much services they actually provide to, that the Office of Law actually provides to the county council.
Understood. One last question, if I might. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with the sponsor's general point that this just clarifies a power that we already have?
Under Charter 314, you certainly have the power to get special assistance.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that the sponsor said, and I mean, I'll ask him about this in a second, but he said, look, we can already do this. I'm just putting it in here so it's clarified. But I'm just interested in your opinion on that.
I think you could. I think you could expand. For example, Ms. Tate's position. I think you could do that.
But right now, currently, if we get an Office of Law opinion that we either disagree with or think there's an issue with, we already have the power to contract out to hire a legal opinion.
For special assistance.
And I think we've done that in the not too distant past. How, again, in your opinion, how is this different from that situation? Or is it the same?
The way I have read it is that you would have your own attorney.
That's how I read it too.
On staff.
That's how I read it too. I'll be honest. But the sponsor says that, no, it's not a position. There's no budget. And so to Mr. Smith,
it says you may appoint.
I know, but what I'm getting at is I've heard both sides of this. I've heard, hey, this is no big deal. It's just clarifying. But then I've heard, we have to do this. And I'm just worried about the implications of what would happen. So again, can you tell me, this is a question to you now, what would this achieve that we can't already get? We can already get a legal opinion. We already have money in the budget every year to do that. I mean, it's no secret, we all get Office of Law opinions we don't like, and we can choose to ignore them. We can choose to, I mean, look, I'm going to give out a Trumbauer pro tip, okay? Usually what I do, okay, I work with Amy Tate, and I get something up, and then I let Office of Law review it. You guys usually improve it a little bit, and when I'm working with you guys, I usually show it to Ms. Tate, and she finds something, and working together works pretty good. Every once in a while, yeah, we get a stinker that none of us like, and you know what? We're the county council. We can ignore it. We can hire our other employee, another legal opinion for a particular issue. But I'm not sure at this point I'm comfortable having, and again, this is where it gets confusing because I read this as having another full-time attorney to serve at our
Ms. Tate,
pleasure.
is Ms. Tate back there?
Well, I think she chose not to.
Chose not to.
Oh, okay. So to answer a couple questions you had there. One, we've seen on bills where the one word could change the dynamics of a situation, where an individual has said may appoint someone or shall appoint someone. Shall is definitive. It shall happen. It will happen. May is optional, right? Is that correct? So nowhere in here does it say shall appoint an attorney. And I make that sort of distinction because the intent is not necessarily to hire an individual, but to codify in code that we already have that ability, because one of the things that I've seen in the past, not necessarily with this administration or this county attorney, is we have often resorted back to the county code, or we've resorted back to the charter. And one of the things that comes up as a response to, well, it's not in there, so you don't have that power. And, well, now I want to make it explicit so that it states in there that we do have that power. So there is no confusion on where our knowledge is on how we can hire someone or someone else's. And so for me, as the administration mentioned earlier, one of the three things he mentioned was that we can do it now. Well, if that's the case, then this doesn't change anything, except spells it out in paper on the chart within our charter, so that there is no confusion that we have the ability to do that. It's as simple as that. For me, one of the things we've worked on in my day job, in which pays my mortgage, is we're redoing all of our policies and our agreements that we've had with different units. And part of that is because we've had a lot of handshakes that made things happen when it comes to relationships and resources. And so one of the stances that the organization has done is to document everything. And so I'm just a fan now of just documenting what we already have. And if it's, as the administration stated earlier, we already have the ability to do it, then this doesn't change anything. And so, which I'm in agreement of, it doesn't change anything. But it makes me feel a hell of a lot better knowing that within the charter, it states we have that ability to do so with appointing an attorney to work on our behalf if we so desire to do that, which we have the ability to do right now.
But I just think that the way it's written is, it's
and
not...
which way is it? What words in there makes it?
Well, what I'm saying is I didn't read it as being supplemental to the Office of Law. I read it as being independent of the Office of Law. So, for example, Ms. Tate is really supplemental to the Office of Law. The Office of Law continues to be the primary counsel. Primary counsel with an S to the counsel with a C. So if that's not the intent, then maybe it's a language issue.
Is there? Can you read out in that specific?
Copy real quick. The attorney to the county council shall issue legal opinions and provide legal advice on legislation and legal questions affecting interests of the county to the members of the county council.
Okay.
And then if you look at the you say and then that's in your proposed section 315. And then in your proposed section 526, it says the county attorney shall be a legal advisor if requested. So you would not have to come to the county, the way I read this is you would not have to come to the county attorney at all. And what this person under 315 is doing is what the county attorney would normally do, which is provide legal counsel to a legislative branch.
So right now, though, if we wanted a legal opinion and we decided to hire someone externally without going to you all, could we do that right now?
You can do that, I'm sorry, you can do that under section 314. Special assistance.
So back to 526, the county shall be the legal advisor of the county, blah, blah, or let me go back to that portion that you accepted, right? Shall be a legal advisor. Isn't that what they are right now? Aren't they isn't the county attorney a legal advisor?
We are right now the legal advisor to the county council, and we are the ultimate legal advisor to the county council.
Correct. And so, but couldn't we, even though you're the legal advisor, couldn't we right now go and get an attorney to draft language on a proposed issue that we have without coming to the county attorney?
You could, but that said, they are not the legal counsel to the county council. They are a special assistant for a particular issue.
But it's an opinion.
It's an opinion. It's their opinion to you, yes.
Is the county attorney's, if she drafts language, what is that? Is it an opinion?
I'm sorry, if the county attorney
If the county attorney drafts us language on a particular issue, what does that consider?
that is an opinion.
It's an opinion.
However, it is the opinion under the charter.
Correct.
Right.
That we can either choose to listen to or not listen
Right.
to.
Any of our clients can choose to take our advice or not.
So we're not really closing the door on getting it, because it never says we're ceasing relationships with the county attorney, or it doesn't change any of that.
It may not be intended to say that, but what it says is that this person shall issue legal opinions and provide legal advice and legal questions affecting interests of the county to the members of the county council.
Correct.
So this could be an independent,
It could be.
To me, it reads independent.
It could be an independent,
It may
or
be, right.
because we may appoint someone to do that.
Right.
We may.
You may.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Perka, Mr. Perka.
I want to bring up something that I hadn't considered till this last discussion, and I just want to, maybe I can ask Ms. Blair to, if as Mr. Smith suggests, this doesn't change anything, but just puts it in writing and clarifies it, and this goes before the voters, and the voters say no, then do we lose could one make the argument that we then, now we lost the ability to do what we had the ability to do under 314? Would that, I don't know if you
No, I understand.
I didn't think of that until
understand.
now, but.
Well, that is an interesting question, because if it doesn't do anything more than what you can already do, then it's superfluous and meaningless.
Then to put it before the voters, they might say, no, you can't do
They might say
that.
no, and then you may be you could end up in a worse situation. Yes, that's absolutely true.
May I, while I have the floor, I think that's a concern, I really do. But while I have the floor, can I just, one of the, weigh in on this one point, I know it's late. One of the problems, I think, I want to admit that and agree that I think there is a problem, that because I think sometimes the Office of Law is trying to serve two masters. I mean, I admit that, and I agree that something, and I appreciate the effort to do something about that. I very much do. My worry, though, is that since I'm worried that this idea really solves it, because we might just trade serving two masters for serving seven masters. Because if we hired an attorney, we might have seven different interests here, not just two.
So it's no different than us hiring the county auditor. We're in the process of interviewing for the county auditor right now, that seven of us will have to decide on who the person will be ultimately selected.
Point taken.
And so we will make a selection, and that person, the county auditor, has represented us well over the last 2 decades, where they've been a sounding voice against, not necessarily against in a hostile manner, but for the, with Mr. Hammond, for example, it's really been eye-opening to sort of see two different angles from what their perspective is versus what, and I think it's benefited us. But we all will ultimately decide whether or not we propose the question. So, thank you.
Mr. Pruski.
Yes. Ms. Blair, it sounds like you did your research, and Harford County is the only model where that's split, and obviously you raised that. Are there any jurisdictions in the state of Maryland that you're aware of where the county council approves the county attorney?
There are, I have a list. There are a couple where they actually confirm the county attorney. There are a couple where if the county executive wants to dismiss the county attorney, they're entitled to some type of hearing in front of the county council. Most of them have the model that Anne Arundel County has. As I said, Harford County they've actually had it in place since 1976.
Sure. And then a follow-up question. You're not aware of any jurisdiction, at least I'm not either, that where a county attorney is elected at large or?
No. There was an attempt in 2014. There was a resolution that came up for election of a county attorney, and actually our office gave an opinion that it would violate the Maryland Constitution by creating an elective position that was not authorized under state law.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Let's go ahead and open up the public hearing. Anyone here wishing to speak on 5116?
Thank you.
Mushrooms today.
Julie Johnson, P.O. Box 6634, Annapolis, Maryland. Obviously, there's some issues about the bill, but I would like to reiterate Mr. Peruka's comments that there are times when I've been here, and it certainly looks very clear as though there are different interests from members of the council as opposed to the attorneys from the Office of Law who are presenting the position of the county executive. And I may be confused, but I thought that they were really beholden to the county executive, and that was the person ultimately to whom they reported and were responsible. And when I went to the closing arguments of John Leopold's trial, they said that the chief of police and the attorney for Anne Arundel County serve at the pleasure of the county exec. So I think it's worth at least pursuing how do we clarify and strengthen the position of the county under the circumstances where there are conflicts, from the political positions. And then again, I will mention what I tried to mention during the invitation to the audience. I really think that there needs to be at least a consideration and discussion of the issues of where do the citizens turn? Because since the attorney for the county defends the county exec and all of the executive agents, all of the agencies, well, you're not trying to ask them, you don't want a lawsuit, you're simply saying, look, I see this problem, can you help me with it? And the answer is they're attorneys, and attorneys respond in legal ways. We're going to defend this lawsuit. If you want to go to a lawsuit, no, we're not speaking to you. So I really do appreciate you raising the issue, and you're discussing it in such a sincere and earnest manner. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, public hearing on 5116 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title.
A resolution entitled Charter Amendment, Attorney to the County Council.
All right, any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Grasso?
Nay.
Mr. Pruski?
Nay.
Mr. Peruka?
Nay.
Mr. Trumbauer?
No.
Mr. Walker?
No.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Fink?
Nay.
1 in the affirmative, 6 in the negative. Resolution
Man, that went down
5116
hard, didn't it?
is defeated.
All right, we're going to bring back Bill 5516. I think this is going to be
Mr. Smith,
short.
I've had 0 to 7, so don't worry about it. Mr. Chairman, members of the council, we would ask if one of you could make a motion to hold this bill so we can develop.
Move to hold.
Hold on. Whoa. Are you done?
To develop amendments for the next council session.
All right, Mr. Chairman, before they get into that, before we get a hold into this thing over here, my biggest complaint is going to be this little green swatch right over here between 100 and 170. So you guys can put a little amendment in there, and John Grasso would like that removed from this thing over here, because I stood on those corners and I seen the traffic that goes down that road, and those people don't look too happy in the morning along with me. So I don't want to give any of my constituents any thinking that I'm going to put some PUD right there. Okay, I don't care where you put it everywhere else in that over, and you want to do it Pruski and Pistol Pete, you go for it. But don't take it right out of here, that green stuff from me, so whatever amendment you got to do to fix that, fix that.
It actually looks like a pistol.
It does, don't it? Look, Pete.
All right, Mr. Trumbauer's got a motion. There was a second. Please call the roll on holding this bill to the first meeting in September.
Mr. Grasso?
Aye.
Mr. Pruski?
Aye.
Mr. Perutka?
Aye.
Mr. Trumbauer? Mr. Walker?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Fink?
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Motion to hold Bill 5516 until the first meeting in September is passed.
Any other business to be brought before the council? May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn until September.